You're listening to Amazing Radio. This is Amazing Afternoons. I'm delighted to say that on the line with me right now, we have Caitlin LM. Caitlin, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's finally stopped raining where I am. It was snowing quite a lot for the majority of the weekend, and now the snow's all gone and it's just loads of puddles everywhere. What's it like where you are?
Yeah, pretty similar. We had it kind of tried to snow, but didn't quite make it. It
Hmm.
was more like sleet, but it was very frosty. It was quite nice until now it is just puddles and
Yeah.
sand and grey again.
Yeah, it's time of year, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've had a great year. It's fair to say it's been like your breakthrough year. You're getting to the end of the year now. Are you looking back on 2023 and saying that was good?
Yeah, it's been really, I feel like it's been quite a sort of formative time. Like I sort of started making my own stuff last year, and this year's been just a real sort of I feel like I've been like finding my feet, doing lots of gigs, kind of sort of experimenting with things live and just getting some tracks out into the world. And yeah, it's been really exciting.
Good. Well, I'm excited from the tracks I've heard this year, but for the wider audience listening around the world, tell us about yourself. You're a multi-instrumentalist, you're a producer, session player. I guess you'd fall into electronica, ambient kind of genres if we had to pigeonhole you, because everyone likes doing that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
tell us how long you've been making music and how long you've been playing music, because you've obviously been playing a while if you can play all these instruments.
Yeah, well, I started I mean very young. My mum was a singer, my dad was a bassist, so I always kind of had lots of music around. And when I was younger, started playing piano and guitar and doing a lot of singing in choirs. Eventually picked up saxophone and ended up studying saxophone at the Royal Northern College of Music, and then was sort of doing lots of gigging and stuff like that. And then during COVID, I was just desperate for something to do as an outlet when I couldn't be out gigging, um, and started getting into production, and that's where the sort of electronic side of things started coming through. But yeah, my music now that I am like my own as a solo artist is very much kind of bringing these things together. So it's like a foundation of these kind of electronic sounds, but then bringing in live instruments and vocals and things like that.
And what was it about the sax that made you pick that up? Did you have an early love of jazz, or was it more like pop sax sound you liked, or did you
It
like
was
Lisa Simpson?
I did get called Lisa Simpson at school. It was a whole it was literally because it was there. Um I think it was we got to choose lessons for GCSE. We got like free lessons, like some like scheme they had, and much to my parents' annoyance, because they were already paying for me to have lessons on piano and guitar, I was like, I want to start a new instrument. And there just happened to be this like old battered sax hanging around in the music department, so I was just like, cool, I'll just play that because there's one hanging around. And just really took to it. um so it was kind of very much just by chance, but then as I started learning it, I kind of started seeing it in all these different genres and really sort of enjoying exploring those things. So yeah, it was pure chance, but I'm glad it happened because it worked out well.
Yeah, it's worked out really well for you. And I guess with something like a sax, we kind of touched upon it. You can hear it in loads of different genres, can't you? It just lends
Mm.
itself so well, and it's so kind of like unique and instantly recognizable, but also it's still seen as quite a sophisticated instrument as well, isn't it?
I, yeah, it can be, but then also you can find some really like amazing raucous saxophone stuff going on, which like isn't necessarily what I play nowadays. But back in the day, I used to play some pretty like angry stuff on the sax, which was really fun. And I think yeah, it's really cool because it can just do so many different things. And I think when you start going down a bit of a rabbit hole of sort of exploring different genres and different worlds that it sits within, you can realize like it's not just this like really smooth thing, but it does all sorts, and it's really fun.
What about you where you grew up and where you are now? How has that shaped your music? Where are you in the world, by the way? Manchester way, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, I'm in Manchester. I'm in South Manchester now, and I grew up in North Manchester, so I've not strayed super far. Um, But yeah, I I was really lucky to be at a school that had like not a huge amount of music provision, but like really incredible teachers. I just like really looked out that they were really encouraging, really supportive. And so I think like from the get-go having like family at home who were really encouraging, really good teachers, and then also like I went to like my local music service and went to like ensembles and things like that. And I was really lucky to be in a place where those opportunities growing up were around. And then also was in like a high school rock band and sort of, yeah, doing all these different things, whether it was like jazz or classical or rock or musical theatre and stuff, like just kind of did, I threw myself into any opportunities that I could find. And then now being in South Manchester, like there's an amazing scene in Manchester in general, and it feels like there's like a really lovely community here, and there's all sorts of different like nights on, amazing venues, and lots of like grassroots stuff happening, and you can really see that there's just a really nice energy being here, and it feels like it's just getting bigger and bigger, which is like really exciting to see, because I think it's starting to, I feel like things in general are starting to kind of spread out from London a bit more compared to like, I remember like I did actually for like 2 months move to London and started studying in London and was just like, nah, it's not for me, I'm going back up north. And it, you know, I do enjoy going to London, but I just feel like there's this really lovely energy here and there's all sorts going on, and I feel really lucky to be a part of that.
Excellent stuff. So I think we should hear one of the tracks you've done for us. We'll start with "Breathe Again," if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about how this track came about then.
This track kind of took lots of different forms for a while. There's like, if you go back through my files, there's all these different versions of it, and it started from just like jamming stuff out, and then eventually kind of started to become what it is now. But yeah, I throughout kind of had this feeling connected to it of it being like a bit of an escape and a release. And I find like when I'm writing that the kind of, there's like a general feeling before I write any sort of words, and this one really gradually just came to me as feeling like getting out into nature. And like I think like a week before I sat down and wrote the words for it, I was like out on a hike, and it was like the windiest hike I'd been on in years. And like the point where you're like in the wind and you can't, like you can lean into it and you don't fall over. And I just remember feeling so like really like blew off all the cobwebs, and I felt so much better. And I then came back to this track and I was like, this is what this track is about. So yeah, it's just about like escaping to nature and like kind of resetting a bit.
Amazing. Let's hear it right now. This is Caitlin LM in session for us here on Amazing with "Breathe Again."
Let's run to the hills. Let's just misbehave. Battered by
Caitlin LM in session for us here on Amazing Radio. Still with me here as well as Caitlin. Now, you mentioned how that track came about, but I'm a big fan of your Instagram tutorials you've done. You talk us through the process of making a track. What made you do that? Because I think it's really insightful. In fact, it's inspiring as well for other artists, I think.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was. I think it was just from seeing other people doing it, and I got so much value from watching other creators share their process. And I find it quite hard sometimes. The whole as an artist, you have to be on social media and be quite present. I sometimes feel like, but like, what do I post apart from being like, here's a picture from a gig? Like,
yeah,
I feel like sometimes that can get a bit like, that you could just see that all the time. It's like, cool, but I wanted to do something a bit different. And I think sort of looking back at when I started doing production, I remember seeing these things, seeing these videos and people creating tutorials of how they're making these sounds and being like, whoa, that's so cool. And like, I think now that I'm sort of doing it so regularly and every day, you kind of forget that those things are actually like, they're not just like things that everyone knows about.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, it was just a real moment of like just wanting to share that and be like, I learned so much from other people, and if someone else looked at that and thinks, oh cool, I want to give that a go, then that's great. And yeah, it's really cool to just share those ideas around, I think.
Yeah, and with the production stuff and the software, were you all self-taught with that, or have you had any assistance along the way?
Pretty much all self-taught, yeah. So I use Ableton, which was kind of, I started on Logic and then moved on to Ableton, and I think since going on to that was a real like, just it all started like really making sense. And I've kind of, I've chatted with mates who use it and like got bits of advice, but mostly just kind of going on YouTube and watching tutorials and just like playing around with stuff. And there's definitely a lot of files saved which are just like random bits of nonsense which probably sound terrible if I listen back to them now, but yeah, it's been like a really fun process, just getting really, really comfortable with that.
Can I just ask what the difference is with because I when I've been active as a musician myself, I would always let the producer or engineer or whatever they do whatever when they're using Logic mainly, and I found in my experiences it's more people who use Ableton who use it in a live situation as well, who tend to prefer that. So DJs, producers, ambient music, electronica. What are the main differences between Logic and Ableton? Is there more freedom on Ableton to manipulate or something like that? Well, why do people like yourself choose Ableton?
I think, well, definitely for the live stuff, Ableton is actively designed so that you can have, you can plug in MIDI controllers and be like triggering things, sampling things live, and it has like a whole like, it has like the arrangement view where you sort of see the long lines of things that are recorded, or there's another view called session view, which is like has little like squares and rectangles that you can like trigger things and bring things in and out. So it's for live stuff, it's definitely like the thing that you would want to use in that setting. But it's really interesting. I think when I first moved to Ableton, I was really like, oh my gosh, this looks so overwhelming, and there's like so much that I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. But then the more you dig into it, it feels, I always sort of compare it to like, it feels more like an instrument. Like it feels like it's this thing that you kind of learn how it works, and then you can sort of create things from. And there's just like I barely use like external plugins. I use a lot of the Ableton, like the ones that come with Ableton, because there's just like so much there, and it's just such an incredible tool.
Amazing. Well, we're going to hear another track now, if that's all right. Kinetic is the other session track you provided. Let's hear it. This is Caitlin LM in session for us here on Amazing. So that was Kinetic from Caitlin LM in session for us here on Amazing Radio. Final section of our chat here, Caitlin. And I want to know, first of all, what you got planned for the rest of the year. Are you working on any new material, any more live dates?
Yeah, so I'm currently sat squirreling away at an EP for next year. So I'm kind of starting to like tie off the ends of that, really. A lot of tracks which I sort of played across the year, just kind of getting them to a point where I'm like ready to release. So it's the kind of stuff, if you see me live, you might have caught a version of it, but it might sound slightly different when it comes out. And yeah, just kind of working on some like festival stuff for next year and lots of little bits and bobs, but nothing confirmed, set in stone yet, but I will be shouting out about it soon. So
amazing. That's so cool. And are you going to get any help with this EP? Are you going to put it out completely independently? What's the plan?
It's going to be independent, yeah. So just lots of admin.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going to do this one myself. Yeah.
That's amazing. So exciting as well. What about session work? Are you inundated with calls for you to pick up one of your instruments?
Fair amount, yeah. I've got I'm off to France on Thursday to do some gigs over there, and then just lots of like bits and bobs up until Christmas, and then I'm going away in January, so I'm just gonna run off and have some downtime for a few weeks.
You say that, but then you went for a walk and you're inspired to write Breathe again. So when you're away, do you listen to music? Do you read books, and do they help form your sound?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it kind of can't really escape it. I try and like to a certain extent be like, oh, this is a cool idea, make a note of it and put it aside rather than like obsessing over it too much, because it is very easy to get like lost in new ideas for new things. But I'm like, no, I do also need to just have a breather and separate myself and then come back fresh later. So yeah, but lots of music, lots of books, absolutely.
Yeah, what kind of things are you listening to at the moment? Have you got a broad range of things you listen to? Do you like pop music? Do you like the avant-garde side as well?
Yeah, a bit of anything and everything, to be honest. At the moment, I'm just listening to loads of Fred again at the moment. I think it's my sort of like hyping me up to try and like, now it's starting to get a bit darker and colder, just like do some movement, go for runs and things like that. So yeah, he's sort of my artist at the moment.
I've found I found Fortet's Spotify playlist. He has like a kind of liked playlist, which we all do. But I found Fortet's, and it's absolutely wild. Like the stuff he finds, like just on Spotify. I mean, his record collection is quite famously insane, apparently, because his dad was like a big record collector anyway. So he kind of inherited loads of amazing records which you can't get anywhere and which are only available on vinyl. But now he has this kind of Spotify playlist which I've found loads of weird stuff on, like artists I've obviously never heard of. But it's amazing when you can find stuff like that, isn't it? You find like what's influencing the people who are influencing people like you.
Yeah, no, it's crazy just like seeing, like, especially I feel like there's a thing with a lot of artists who, they seem on the surface like their music kind of does this thing, but then when you actually listen to like, oh, they're really into this like really crazy sounding thing, and that's like, what? It's so interesting. I love stuff like that.
That's amazing. We will bring this conversation to an end now, Caitlin. Thank you so much for doing this session, first of all. And we really can't wait to see what you do next. Looking forward to 2024. Another great year, hopefully, for Caitlin LM.
Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for having me.